Hi, everyone. My name is David Bogue, Associate Director for the Halton District School Board, and I want to welcome all of our viewers here tonight for our public information meeting for our new Milton Secondary School. We have a full agenda for you tonight. If we can just flip to the next slide, please. We'll do some introductions and some brief welcomes. We'll honor the land. We're going to talk to you about what is involved in the boundary review process that we've been undertaking since last year, talk about the role of our boundary review committee, and we're going to present some of the work of that committee. We had an awesome group, a very committed group of parents that were out working with us last year to share with you their work, which is some selected options that we're looking for your feedback from. We'll talk a little bit about the next steps and some timelines. And then we've dedicated about an hour or so from 7:30 to 8:30 to answer questions that you may have. So we're really looking forward to your questions and providing some responses for you. So I'd like to introduce one of our we have two other co-chairs of the boundary review process. I'd like to just introduce Joanna Oliver, trustee in Oakville and co-chair of the boundary review committee, and she's going to do the honoring of the land.
Good evening, everyone. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
So I'd like to just introduce to you some trustees this evening. This boundary review encapsulates parts of all of Milton, and part of Burlington, North Burlington. So I just ask the trustees to just come along and one after the other. I won't introduce you separately, but to say a brief few words of welcome. So we'll start with Donna.
Thank you very much. I'm Trustee Donna Daniele, Milton Wards 1 and 2. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's taken their time out of their evening tonight to be here. And also thanks to the parent volunteers and the staff that put the boundary review together.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Heather Garretts. I'm the trustee for South Milton, Milton's Ward 3 and 4. And I just want to say thank you for joining us this evening. And just a huge thanks to the parents that stepped up and have been part of this boundary review.
You're muted, Chair Grabantz.
Chair Grabantz, are you there?
I am, sorry. My name is Andrea Grabantz, and I am trustee for Wards 3 and 6 in Burlington. And this specific boundary review deals with the area in the Kilbride area and part of Dr. Frank J. Hayden. And so it's important that we have representation from Burlington, and I know the community has been asking for this boundary, to look at this boundary for a very long time, and I really appreciate the parents that came out and were part of the boundary review committee for this.
Thanks to all trustees, and I'd like to just now introduce our Director of Education, Stuart Miller, to say a few words as well.
Thanks, David. This is an exciting night. We've been waiting for a third secondary school in Milton for some time. It has been slow slogging in terms of getting the approvals and all that, the required approvals to get going and the purchasing of the land, but we can almost taste it now. We can almost, we're still a little bit of time away from a new school and the students coming into it, but it's not before time. So this is an exciting night and an extremely important night. As we all realize, we're in some difficult times at the moment with the pandemic. This is a night of good news. This is a night of good stories because we will be showing proposals and possible boundaries for this new secondary school. And that's good for the students and good for the people of Milton. There's no question. I want to thank especially the parents of the Boundary Review Committee. It's a big commitment to do a Boundary Review Committee, and this was probably our biggest Boundary Review Committee ever. So thank you so very, very much for your commitment to Milton and to public education, and of course, to your children and future children. And I also want to thank everybody for coming this evening and hearing about the boundary and the exciting changes that are going to happen in Milton so that we'll have a brand new secondary school for kids. And finally, I want to thank our staff and the trustees for all the hard work and diligent efforts in putting this all together, not just this evening, but all the background work and the future work that they will do. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Stuart. Next, I'd just like to acknowledge a number of people that have been involved in this process. Many who are here on the call tonight. I just run through the names here. Superintendent Jackie Newton, as Superintendent of Milton, has been chairing the Boundary Review Steering Committee, and she's on the call tonight, and you'll hear from her a little bit later. Superintendent Pennyfather, who represents the North Burlington community, that Kilbride community that Chair Gravance talked about. We had a number of superintendents that aren't here regularly, but they're here. We pull them in as needed. So Julie Hunt-Gibbons from School Programs, Mark Zonneveld from Student Services, Roxana Nagoy from Business, and Maya Pachetti from Facilities. From our planning department, these three folks are here tonight on this call. I'd also like to acknowledge Dom Renzilla, who was the general manager who started this process with us, and Dom retired. And Fred Thibault is the new general manager. And then Michelle Daguerre and Mitchell Gundy are here with us tonight as well. You've met our three trustees from the affected areas. You've heard from Trustee Joanna Oliver, the co-chair. You'll hear from her again tonight. Myself, I've introduced myself, and then Gord Truffin, also a co-chair of the Boundary Review Committee. You'll hear from Gord a little bit later as well. So lots of different people involved, lots of time and energy put in to make sure that this has run smoothly. So we'll get into the nuts and bolts of things here. So really what we're here to do tonight is really to give you a little bit of sense of the boundary review process. So we've been through a bit of a journey. We would normally be having this meeting in a face-to-face environment, but unfortunately this is the way it is with the pandemic. So we think this is the next best thing. We're going to share with you the work of the Boundary Review Committee, which is the preferred options that have surfaced. And Gord will talk a little bit more about that later. And then most importantly, we want to collect your feedback. So we've got some questions that have already started to come in, and there'll be some more coming in tonight during the meeting. So we'll try to give you some responses to the questions that you've got. And there will be some opportunity for further input as well after the meeting. So I think at this point in time, I'm going to turn things back over to our co-chair, Joanna Oliver, to talk a little bit more about what is the boundary review.
Okay, thank you. So with the tremendous growth in Milton, the HDSB long-term accommodation plan revealed student accommodation pressures in the existing secondary schools and pointed to the need for a new school in the southwest part of Milton, which we have been referring to as Milton Southwest Number 1. Once the funding from the Ministry of Education was approved for this new secondary school, HDSB needed to take a look at the actual and projected enrollment in the existing schools and this newly proposed school in order to balance out student enrollment overall. Therefore, at the September 18, 2019 board meeting, HDSB trustees approved a motion to initiate the process to establish a boundary review for the new Milton Secondary School. The wording of the motion is presented on the slide for you. You will note that the review process was meant to be completed no later than June 2020. However, due to the pandemic and the provincial health protection measures, we had to postpone the final steps of this review and to resume in the fall. And so this brings us to tonight's meeting. Next slide. The purpose of this boundary review was to establish a boundary for student enrollment at the new school. In other words, to decide which geographic areas of Milton would be designated to have their students enrolled at the new school. And while this boundary was yet to be established, it was necessary to simultaneously review the current boundaries of the existing secondary schools in order to balance out the enrollment. Therefore, this process had to also include looking at Milton District High School, Fred Kielburger Secondary School, and Dr. Frank J. Hayden Secondary School. Dr. Hayden Secondary School had to be included since students from the Kilbride community to date had a split cohort, with some students designated to go to Milton District High School and others to Hayden Secondary School. And so these boundaries had also be considered.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Gord Truffin. It's my pleasure to be a superintendent of education of the Halton District School Board, but also to be one of the co-chairs along with Associate Director Bogue and Trustee Oliver for this boundary review. I'm going to be speaking about the process for our boundary review that we've been doing since January. I will say that I believe this is my 4th or 5th boundary in Milton, and it's an absolute pleasure working with the many families that I've had the opportunity to work with on boundary reviews. The parents are absolutely committed to this process in a fair and transparent way, and I've got to know them, a number of them, very well over the past number of years. And as I said, it's an absolute pleasure to do a boundary review in Milton. Just to start, this Director Miller alluded that this was probably one of the largest boundary review committees that we've ever had, and he's quite correct. This boundary review involved every school, elementary school, public school in Milton, as well as both high schools, as well as Kilbride Public School and Dr. Frank Hayden Public School. And so what that meant was we, in our admin procedure, we have 2 representatives from each school in the affected communities. So that meant every one of those schools had 2 parents. And these parents were represented or appointed by each of their school councils. And I should say that our meetings were also open to the public, and we did have some visitors who observed the meetings as well. But these parents were committed to meeting at these times and coming up with the options that you're going to be hearing about very shortly. The purpose of the Boundary Review Steering Committee is initially to determine what schools are part of the boundary review process. And that was a very simple decision. We said every school in Milton needs to be involved if we're talking about a new high school in Milton. And so we determined that every school had to have parent representation. And the role of the steering committee is also just to generate a few initial boundary options for consideration. So, when we've had before our first boundary review committee meeting, we wanted to present the boundary review committee some potential options just to get the work started. And I can tell you, I believe we started with maybe 5 options. And as you'll see later, the Boundary Review Committee came up with 15 additional options. The role of the steering committee is also to take the preferred options, which you will hear this evening, take the preferred options to administrative council, which includes all of the superintendents, the senior team, and make a recommendation to the director of education. The role of the Boundary Review Committee is to work collaboratively, and I can tell you that this committee, although large, worked very collaboratively on all of the options and generating new options. They worked collaboratively to examine the boundary options. They provided feedback to staff. They asked great questions, whether it be transportation, programming. They provided suggestions and feedback for staff to give back to them. They suggested additional options for review. And then ultimately, at the last Boundary Review Committee, we had some preferred options, and they are 3 preferred options that you'll be seeing this evening. The criteria that we used for the options, and I can tell you that these options and criteria, the Boundary Review Committee looked at every single one of these criteria, and the decisions in the preferred options took these into consideration, whether program, proximity, balancing overall enrollment, long-term boundaries. They looked at all of them. These are the meeting dates that we had, our Boundary Review Committee meeting dates. So we started this work in January, and I can tell you that we had our meeting March 10th, but we all know what happened that Friday, March 12th. We were in a provincial shutdown. So we were almost done this work. If we just had another week, we would have been able to do this work, but we have been shut down, and as Trustee Oliver alluded, due to health and safety, we could not continue this work, but we are doing this now. And we will have our last boundary review committee on October 8th. I would like to review the process with the viewers this evening. So our boundary review process is an administrative procedure. We are bound to a process, and we do follow that process. So steps one and two happened earlier in the fall. Trustees approved the commencement of a boundary review, and you saw that slide. The steering committee reviews enrollment, scope capacities, and programs. In steps 3 and 4, we announced a boundary review, and that happened in late fall. In November, we announced that we were going to have a boundary review, and then we needed to establish a boundary review committee as I've already indicated, at each of our schools in Milton, including Kilbride and Dr. Frank Hayden. So step 5 is kind of where we are right now. We are at our public consultation to review the preferred options. And then what happens after tonight, we will get the feedback. The form was sent to the Milton communities, as well as Dr. Hayden and Kilbride. It was sent to you last night to submit a public feedback form. So we're going to take all that feedback, and we will be presenting that to the Boundary Review Committee on October 8th to see, did the Boundary Review Committee miss something? We'll look at all of the feedback, and options could be changed or tweaked. Step 6 is then the steering committee makes a recommendation to the director, and the director will share that report with the board. The public will have an opportunity to delegate the board. And what's very, very important here is the board of trustees that make the final decision on the boundary. And then the integration committee is established to develop and implement a positive integration for students and staff. At this time, I would, Blair Fleming, who is a parent and school council chair member at EW Foster, he also has kids at Sam Sherritt. Blair, unfortunately, was not able to be with us tonight. However, I did ask Blair to provide me a video, and Blair did do that. So I'm just going to kind of change my screen. Bear with me for just a few moments.
Hi, my name is Blair Fleming. I'm a volunteer and executive of EW Foster School Council in Milton, and we have 3 students in the system. When the call for volunteers was circulated, I did not hesitate for a moment to be a member of the Boundary Review Committee. To be a member of this committee is to share our time, our evenings, our perspective, and our energy. Those are precious commodities. On the other hand, I was confident in the process as I had participated in previous reviews. I was confident of the support and leadership from administration and staff of the Boundary Review Steering Committee to value our perspectives, listen to our ideas, and to respond to our inquiries. I also knew there would be a great group of parents, guardians, and community members who had a genuine interest in our shared community. We certainly did not always share the same opinion, but we openly listened and debated. I personally want to thank all those members for their effort and for inviting me into this group. As I previously mentioned, the staff and administration were incredibly responsive and transparent in the review process. I believe my colleagues in the review committee will agree. The team and skills of the staff and administration were impressive. They were prepared, open to listen, and thoughtful in their responses and guidance. Acknowledged when more information and research was necessary, and always returned with a response, and more often than not, with additional perspectives and ideas. Sometimes the committee was overwhelmed, but we stormed that information in front of us, and we boiled it down to our preferred scenarios. To keep this short, thank you to all those who participated, and to those who are listening today. Know that all parties have put an immense amount of effort and thought into the recommendations. All the best, and I hope to see you on the sidewalk, walking to school in the near future.
And I thank Blair Fleming for sending me that video. I've had the opportunity to this is my third boundary review with Blair, and I hope he was able to capture the role of the boundary review committee. Just very quickly, before we get into options, I would like to let you know that there has been some decisions, regardless of the boundary that will come out of this work. The school and certainly the boundary review committee is well aware of this as well, because we started with this slide when we first met in January. The school will open with grade 9 and 10 students only. It will have a community pathway program. And the school will be an iStem school, and it will be for grade 9 only. So those are the programs that the school will open with. I would like to now turn it over to Fred Thibault and Michelle Degar, who will be talking about the options.
Okay, over the course of 4 meetings, the Boundary Review Committee considered 21 options. We have 3 recommended options to present to you, and all the options are available on the board website. So for all options, yellow represents Craig Kielburger, green represents Milton District, pink represents New High School, Milton Southwest number 1, and the reddy-brown color represents Dr. Frank J. Hayden. In all options that are presented tonight, Dr. Frank Kilbride will have a unified cohort to Dr. Frank J. Hayden. So for option 5B, all areas north of Derry will attend, with the exception of Bruce Trail, will attend Milton District. And those include the schools Chris Hadfield, Escarpment View, Martin Street, Sam Sherritt, W.I. Dick, and Brookville. And then all options, Brookville will have a split cohort with Acton District. The family schools for Craig Kielburger will be Bruce Trail, Hawthorne Village, Irma Colson, Tiger Jeet Singh, and students going to French immersion from Ann J. MacArthur, P.L. Robertson, and Viola Desmond will be directed to Craig Kielburger. The family of schools for Milton Southwest number 1 will be Ann J. MacArthur, Boyne, P.L. Robertson, Viola Desmond. So next. Option 6B, very similar to 5B. So we have the option where area north of Derry Road, with the exception of Bruce Trail, attends Milton District. The area south of Derry Road, east side of Milton, plus Bruce Trail, will attend Craig Kielburger. And the area south of Derry Road, west side of Milton, will attend Milton Southwest number 1 for the English program. For the French immersion program, all areas north of Derry Road plus P.L. Robertson and Ann J. MacArthur will be directed to Milton District. And south of Derry Road will be Tiger Jeet Singh, Irma Colson, and Viola Desmond will be directed to Craig Kielburger for French immersion. Next. So there you have this family of schools for Craig Kielburger will be Bruce Trail, Hawthorne Village, Irma Colson, Tiger Jeet Singh, and Viola Desmond, French immersion. Milton District will have the following grade 8 schools: Chris Hadfield, Escarpment View, Martin Street, Sam Sherritt, W.I. Dick, Brookville, and Ann J. MacArthur, P.L. Robertson, French immersion. Milton Southwest number 1 will have the elementary schools of Ann J. MacArthur, Boyne, P.L. Robertson, and Viola Desmond. And next. And our last option, 9B, for the English program, all schools north of Derry Road will attend Milton District High School. Schools south of Derry Road on the east side of Milton will attend Craig Kielburger, and schools south of Derry Road on the west side of Milton will attend Milton Southwest number 1. For French immersion, the area north of Derry Road will attend Milton District, and the area south of Derry Road will attend Craig Kielburger. So next. So for the family schools for Craig Kilberger, it will be Hawthorne Village, Irma Coulson, Tigerjeet Singh, Anne J. MacArthur French Immersion, P.L. Robertson French Immersion, and Viola Desmond French Immersion. For Milton District, the family schools are Bruce Trail, Chris Hadfield, Escarpment View, Martin Street, Sam Sherritt, W.I. Dick, and Brookville, which will have a split cohort with Acton District. And for Milton Southwest number 1, the elementary schools will be Anne J. MacArthur Boyne, P.L. Robertson, and Viola Desmond.
Good evening. My name is Jackie Newton, and I'm the superintendent for Milton. It has been an absolute honor for the past 6 years to work with trustees Donna Dinelli and trustee Heather Garretts to serve such a vibrant and growing community. We also recognize that families in Milton are used to boundary reviews and are very grateful for the process that Superintendent Truffin has led this evening with you on the slides. At this time, we would like to consider questions that have been sent in. And as a reminder, there is a link on the website right there. If you have some questions that are coming through, we'll be happy to direct them your way. We're very excited about Milton as a community because all 3 high schools, the new high school, Milton District High School, and Craig Kilberger High School, will offer probably the most choices that any student could wish for in Ontario. We're offering AP at Milton District, which is advanced placement. We're offering IB at Craig Kilberger, which is the International Baccalaureate program. And we're offering iStem for grade 9 students as a starting point at the new Milton High School. So it clearly is an example of innovation and ingenuity and addressing the needs of Milton and what their students' passions and interests lay ahead. At this time, I would like to direct the first question, and I'm going to call upon Associate David Bogue to answer the question. Despite COVID and the weather conditions, can we anticipate an opening September 2021?
Thanks for that question, Superintendent Newton. Our long-term accommodation plan has the new Milton High School opening in September 2021, so that has been our target as we've moved throughout this process. If you've driven by the school recently, you'll see that there is some progress being made on construction. I'm told that it's around 30 to 35% built, but our high schools take a long time to build. So we recognize this timeline is going to be very, very tight. There are some delays outside of our control, namely the pandemic and some supply chain issues that we will be monitoring. And we'll be looking at the construction closely over the next little while to see whether we are making those milestones for a September 2021 opening. My best guess would be that in the next month or 2, we will really need to look and make a determination if we can meet that date. But as of now, that's sort of our target date that we're still moving towards. What I would say, though, is regardless of if there was a delay to that date, the work of this boundary review committee is solid, and the decisions that we make and the feedback that we receive tonight that will help inform our decisions are not impacted at all by the timeline. So in terms of the program options, the boundaries, and those kind of things, those kinds of pieces, we will continue to move forward and make decisions.
Thank you, Associate David Bogue. And we're going to put you back on the floor with the second question this evening, please. Could you describe some of the regional programs that will be offered at the new Milton High School, specifically CPP, any SHISMs, and iStem?
Sure, thanks for that question. And I think you did a bit of an overview, Superintendent Newton. So we do have a really nice balance in Milton with Craig Kilberger having the IB program and the Community Pathways program. Milton District has the advanced placement, and the new Milton High School will have the iStem starting in grade 9. In Milton as well, at all of our sites, we will have a variety of different specialist high skills majors, SHISM programs, and OYAP programs at all sites as well. So they are very much school dependent. We don't make those decisions through this process, but the big program pieces of International Baccalaureate, Advanced Placement, and iStem are part of this. So the new Milton High School, its specialty, if you will be the iStem program that we're really happy about, and the Communities Pathway program as well.
Thank you very much, Associate David Brogue. I'd like to now turn the question towards Superintendent Truffin. And the question is, you had mentioned in your presentation that we are starting with grade 9 and 10 students. So that would be current grade 8 and grade 9 students. So is there an opportunity, if my child is going to be entering grade 10 next year in September, do they have the opportunity to stay at their current school rather than moving over to the new high school?
Thank you, Superintendent Newton. So when this new boundary is approved by our Board of Trustees, that boundary will exist for whatever option was presented this evening. So if a student was supposed to be going to the new Milton School, but is currently attending CK, they would be required to apply for optional attendance for grade 10. Their home school would be the new Milton School. So they would have to follow our admin procedure on optional attendance, which is on the board's website. So they would have to follow the optional attendance procedure because their home school would not be at Craig Kilberger or Milton District. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Truffin, and we'll put you back on the floor for the next question. Many folks in Milton are really excited about this new build, and they want to make sure they get in. So can you please describe what the registration process will be for our students to apply and to be accepted into the new high school?
Okay, so thank you. And quite simply, it is a very, very easy process for our families and our students. When a new boundary is created for a cohort of students, it's automatic using our student information system. So our system would know what families are supposed to be going to either CK, Milton, or the new or Milton District or the new Milton School. So parents don't need to register. The kids are automatically transferred. Students, families don't need to do anything. It's an automatic transfer.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Truffin. We'll also, as all the other schools in all of the Halton District School Boards, we'll be hosting virtual program evenings throughout the month of November so that people will have a flavor of how to register for high school generally. So thank you very much for pointing those pieces out. We would like to call upon our new general manager, Fred Thibault, if he could please answer this question regarding future boundaries. So currently there are some industrial areas east of James Park Parkway, and we know that there are no housing residential pieces there. So why was that included in this particular survey and boundary review this evening?
That's a good question. With regards to why that was included within the Craig Kilberger boundary, is that there is future development planned within this area. Namely, there are 2 secondary plans. So similar to what's happening south of Louis Saint Laurent, that was a full secondary plan of residential development. The same is going to happen east of James Snow Parkway. So we'll have the Trafalgar Corridor secondary plan, which will have a number of new units coming in, as well as the secondary plan that comes afterwards, which is the Britannia East-West secondary plan, which again will be having a number of new units. So Kilberger will be holding those students until such a time potentially a new secondary school opens within that area.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that piece. And I know Fred has been a great asset to our board, and we're looking forward to doing the next boundary reviews for the 2 new elementary schools coming on board soon as well. So never a dull moment with building great schools in Milton. Just a reminder to the audience out there that we do have our HDSB Twitter feed as well as our Facebook page. You can find the link on there. If you would like to ask any questions this evening, we'd appreciate it if you could respond on the Google link on our HDSB Twitter feed or Facebook. The next question I'm going to direct again because Fred Thibault did such a great job, so we'll put him back up on the floor for this question. In terms of busing or transportation, how will that be determined for the new school in Milton?
So with regards to transportation, typically what we do for that is we provide the walk distance or the distance to school. So for the secondary panel, any student that resides beyond 3.2 kilometers from the school, so it's from property line to property line, will be provided transportation. Anyone within that will be a walk to school. student, barring any maybe physical barriers that may prevent that distance from happening. There may be some exceptions, but we don't foresee that in this area. So again, 3.2 kilometers from the school to your home, property line to property line is how we determine eligibility.
Thank you very much, Fred. I appreciate the responses on those pieces for transportation, and that's generally for all of the board. So thank you very much for those pieces. I'd like to call upon Associate Director David Bogue. If you could please answer the process for applying for iStem for grade 9 at the new Milton High School.
Thanks for that question. That process is just in development right now, and it would follow along the lines of the process that took place for our Aldershot iStem program when it began. So that will be communicated out to schools. That would happen sometime this fall, where students and interested families would have an opportunity to submit their application. That would occur following some sort of an open house. That might look a little different this year with COVID and with it may be a virtual kind of thing, so that parents can learn a little bit more about the program. The program will be modeled after the Aldershot model, and so families would certainly have an opportunity to put their name forward for that program.
Thank you very much, Associate Bogue. I have a question for Superintendent Truffin, please. We don't use the term grandfathered anymore. That's kind of a term that we've used in the far past. So parents are just needing clarification once again. If their student is currently at Milton District or at Craig Kielburger or at Hayden for that matter, and they want to stay at that school rather than go to the new school, could you re-describe the optional attendance process, how that might work, please?
Thank you, Superintendent Noonan. So grandparenting, with this boundary, we typically don't do a lot of grandparenting, but we are actually doing grandparenting with all of these options because we're opening up the school as grade 9 and 10. So if you're currently in grade 10 in Milton, you'll be grandparented at your current school where you are. So if you're supposed to be going to CK and you're at Milton District, you'll stay at Milton District if you're currently in grade 10. And grandparenting is important because for optional tenants, we do not offer transportation under any circumstances. However, if we do grandparent kids, transportation is still provided. So those kids that are in grade 10 in Milton right now or at Hayden, if you're in grade 10, your final 2 years, grade 11 and 12, even though that boundary might be changing for younger siblings, your transportation will still be provided. And I think that's the key issue with grandparenting is the transportation is still provided. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Superintendent Truffin. We have explored all of the questions that have been submitted this evening, so thank you very much. I will also make note that some of the questions have related to education in general in Ontario. Some have related to COVID wicked challenges, virtual schools, those pieces, and that's not part of the boundary review. But again, we encourage you to visit our website on school reopening, and there are a lot of great resources there that can help direct answering on those pieces. This evening as well, we will continue to have our questions link open for you so that if a question comes to you later in the evening or tomorrow, you're more than welcome to send your question forward, and we will, as a collective team, answer those questions and post them on our website. If you go to the Halton District School Board and you click on Boundary Review for Milton, you will see the link there, and Mitch is one of our designers. He's been running that website very well for us, and we have kept that activated. So you will see that link for the questions. You'll also see a recorded version of this as well for your viewing pleasure if you're not able to join us or if a neighbor would like to see it with you to go over that. At this time, I would like to thank the team very much for answering those questions, and I would like to turn it over to Trustee Oliver, who will talk about the timelines and the expectations that we hope to have in place for the public consumption. Thank you.
Okay, so as is the process, the report goes to the Board of Trustees for information, and that's scheduled for October 21st. At that meeting, there will be an opportunity for anyone who would like to delegate, and the process for delegation is available on the hdsb.ca website. The board will be asked to make a decision at the meeting of November 4th, when again, a delegation opportunity will present itself. And at that meeting, the final decision will be made and the boundary will be solidified. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Oliver. Again, a question just came in about iStem and how do I get in and how do I apply? Does everybody automatically get in? Again, there will be a virtual open house advertising iStem, and we encourage you to watch that piece. But we will also have information on iStem on our board's website. And again, it's a process where current grade 8s will apply sometime in November to be considered for the iStem program. And they will have a whole link on how to do those pieces, and we'll get response back confirming their acceptance in January. So those are the pieces with the iStem program. So thank you very much for your interest on that. I'd also remind you that you can always email us if you have any questions. You can see that there. We keep it live and active. We will post the responses on our website. And we're asking if you could please provide feedback on the 3 options that you saw this evening, or you might have other suggestions as well. We welcome those in terms of our process. At this time, I'd like to also turn it back to Trustee Oliver, that she could then acknowledge our work this evening and move forward.
Thank you. As Superintendent Truffin pointed out, this was the largest boundary review at HDSB to date. And I personally am very grateful to have been a part of this process as a co-chair and to learn and observe. And so on behalf of the Halton District School Board trustees, and I know that staff also shared this sentiment, I would like to once again acknowledge and express our gratitude for the tremendous work of the Boundary Review Committee. These parents dedicated many hours in the winter months earlier this year to come together and collaboratively conduct a very thorough analysis of current boundaries, current and projected student enrollment, and pressures in order to provide their best advice to staff. And I would like to thank each of you for joining us tonight at this virtual town hall to learn about the process, to better understand all the factors involved in establishing a secondary school boundary, and to learn about the final recommendations for this new Southwest Milton Secondary School. Thank you all very much. And now I will pass it on to Milton trustees Donna Daniele and Heather Garretts, and Burlington trustee and chair Andrea Grabens for final remarks.
Thank you very much. I will be brief. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in tonight, and I would like to echo Trustee Oliver's thanks to the Boundary Review Committee, the parent volunteers, and the staff that put together probably our most unique boundary review during the last 6 months. I would heartily encourage anyone who has any questions to email them to the email address provided, or contact your trustees if you need further clarification. But most importantly, the feedback form, please fill it out and return it. This is the best that the Boundary Review Committee has been able to come up with. If we've missed anything, if you have any better ideas, we won't know that unless you tell us. So please, please, please send us that feedback. Thank you, and thank you again for your time this evening.
Miltonians, how lucky are we to be getting another new high school, another new school? Our community continues to grow, and we come together as a community on a continual basis to support one another. And the volunteers for this boundary review were amazing. And for all those schools to come together and work so collaboratively was most impressive. And it makes me proud to be a Miltonian and to represent you. Please fill out the form. If we've missed anything at all, we need to hear about it. Have a good night, and thanks again.
Though the part of Burlington that is part of this boundary review is small, it is mighty. And if you do have any questions, please fill out the form and ask them. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions, or please delegate the board if you would like to do so. That information is available on the board website. So thank you again to the parents who were part of this committee, and thank you so much to the staff who have put so much work into this. Really appreciate it. Have a great night.